All right, hello and welcome, nerds, to episode 4 of the Keepers by the Dozen Fantasy Football Podcast. Today we are breaking down none other than Duva, Lou Duva. Before we get started here, listen, your roster is pretty good, but I need the league to know, in case they didn't look. Our man Lou finished second in the league, but he had the ninth most points for. He had the ninth most points and finished second in the league. If that doesn't scream like having a lucky horseshoe stuck up your ass last year, I don't know what does. Like that really made me angry when I looked at it, especially because you're in my division. So let's break it down. You have some decisions to make too, my friend. I mean, it might be pretty obvious, it might be clear cut, but when I was looking at your roster, I was like, damn, does he franchise the clear best wide receiver, probably the 101 in any dynasty startup or even redraft league, and then throw his franchise tag on some two great running backs and then maybe a questionable running back? Or does he tag the best, whoever he thinks is the best running back he has, and then throw, because he has three great wide receivers going into 2024. So it's interesting. I mean, there's some question marks and some things that could be said about a couple of these dudes, but it's a tough call to make. So this is what I think he's going to do. I could be completely wrong, but this is what I think you're going to do, and this is probably what I would do if I were in your shoes. Is I would franchise tag Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, like I said, is in the conversation. He's been debated as the 101 in any dynasty startup and redraft for a couple years now, right? Him and Jefferson. Now, Chase finds himself in like the argument for Chase was always that he was tied to Burrow. Like, if you want to take Chase, I'm not mad. Like, people think that Jefferson might be a better option as far as the pure receiver, but they're like, oh, well, Chase is tied to Burrow, and that has come to fruition. Now Jefferson doesn't have Kirk Cousins throwing the ball anymore. He has Nick Mullins, I think, is the current starter. So Jefferson owners are sweating it out right now. They don't know what it's going to be like. I mean, you got to believe in the talent of Jefferson, but Chase is in the better position. So I think you should franchise tag Chase. I couldn't imagine stomaching losing Chase in the lottery, so I think you have to. I think you have to franchise Chase. Like I stated, Burrow missed some time last year, right? So Chase finished at 13, just outside of a wide receiver one. Burrow missed some time due to injury, and even in the games that he played, you could tell that he really wasn't healthy. Now, coming into 2024, all reports are positive, and that Burrow is healthy and ready to go and ready to get back after it. Make another run at a Super Bowl like they did not last year but the year prior. Chase did see a career high in targets and receptions, but his yards per target obviously dropped without Burrow throwing him those deep passes. I would be willing to bet that with a healthy Burrow, Chase is easily a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, and he just is. Like, it's like Chase, Jefferson, Amon. You can throw Amon-Ra in like PPR, half PPR formats. Maybe Marvin Harrison coming in. Who knows how big of an impact he might have. But the only cons I would say, or the only questions I would raise about Chase again is Burrow's health. If Burrow can stay healthy, if Higgins might get traded. There's rumors that he might get traded draft night. If Higgins gets traded or Burrow can't stay healthy, that offense might not be as good as it was last year, and we might have another similar year to last year. But even still with Chase, like I said, he finished at 13. It's not terrible. It's just not that like top 5 or top 3 finish that you're really expecting from him with a healthy Burrow. Now, for your running back, so if you go ahead and you tag, or if you franchise tag Chase, the running backs that you have to choose from are Gibbs, Cook, and Pollard. So let's talk about them. Gibbs is probably the safest of the three, I would say. Gibbs and Cook are elite options. Pollard, there's some question marks. But let's start with Gibbs. Gibbs is a key member of that Detroit Lions offense that was, surprised most people last year. Very, very good. He finished number 10, even with splitting all that work with David Montgomery. So him and Monty split the rushing work, but where David Montgomery doesn't get involved and doesn't take away from is Gibbs' work in the passing game, which is really, in, like I said, even in standard, but in half PPR and full PPR formats, that's really what you're looking for from a running back, is that do they get that passing work? And Jahmyr Gibbs not only gets it, he gets a good amount of it, and he's really good at it. He had 50 receptions last year, which is solid, and he's just electric on the field. Like, he forced 46 missed tackles, which is almost as many as the entire Lions team forced the year prior. And he averaged 5.2 yards after contact, which was the third most among running backs. He's just so good, and you just have to get him the ball. And like I said, he splits the time. And if Montgomery gets hurt, you're looking at almost a lock for top three. With the amount of work that he would get in the running game and all the passing game work, like, you just can't compare. The other running back that is a solid option for you is James Cook out of Buffalo. Okay, so he's an interesting third-year back. He saw 44 receptions. Again, gets that work in the passing game, which you're really looking for if you're looking for a top or possibility for a top option at running back. He finished as an RB1 despite only scoring 5 total touchdowns, which is pretty amazing. So a lot of people have top fantasy finishes at the wide receiver running back position, and it's basically because they scored a ton of touchdowns, double-digit plus touchdowns. James Cook only scored a total of 6 touchdowns and finished as an RB1, which is pretty impressive. He's a between-the-20s god. But for whatever reason, Buffalo doesn't trust him around the goal line. They either sub him out for one of their bigger backs, or they use their real goal line back, which is Josh Allen. But it's comforting to know that he doesn't need the touchdowns to finish as a top fantasy running back. But you would like to see that number increase a little bit. Any cons for James Cook? I mean, barring health, Buffalo lost, Diggs and Gabe Davis. But I trust Buffalo. I trust the coaching staff. I trust Josh Allen to still be a decent offense. So I'm not really worried about James Cook either. I think he is a borderline top 12 running back this year. I think he could finish anywhere between 12 and maybe 15. I think 15 is probably his floor. Again, if he stays healthy. The third running back is a little bit dicey. If I was throwing these 3 running backs in the keeper pool, I would definitely be hoping that Pollard would be the one that I didn't get back. So Pollard going to Tennessee. You already have reports that, between Pollard and Spears, that they're kind of like a 1A, 1B timeshare split. He's taking over, quotation marks, for Derrick Henry, but he's not really feeling that Derrick Henry role, only in name and the workload that they're going to get. Pollard had a very disappointing year last year, despite looking fantastic and electric the year before in limited work, though. The year before he had Zeke. He was kind of that like change of pace back, but he was phenomenal. Towards the end of the year, he ended up really taking the majority share over Zeke, as Zeke is starting to age out there. But as the full-time back, he really disappointed in Dallas last year. So we'll see. I mean, he's a wild card for sure. I wouldn't view him as a top even 15 option, but he still could be a solid RB2 if he was anything, if he's even a shadow of what he was in Dallas with his time with Zeke. Now, if you took one of your running backs and decided to franchise tag them, you obviously would throw Chase in there. But then you have 2 other interesting wide receivers. The first one I want to talk about is Drake London. The hype around Drake London right now is going crazy. He gets Kirk Cousins. Again, see you later, Arthur Smith, who was no good for any of those fantasy options in Atlanta. See you later, Ritter and Mariota and whoever else they had behind center. You get Kirk Cousins, bona fide starting QB in the league, has shown that he is more than capable of supporting top wide receiver fantasy options, Diggs and Jefferson most recently. London's only 22 years old. He's 6'4", 213. He's got that alpha wide receiver build. You haven't seen it on the field yet. His first 2 seasons, he's finished 39 and 36 at the position. So the question I would have is, he has all this hype. Like, everybody's like, oh, he's so talented. He's so talented. You can see it on the field, which you can, but it hasn't translated. I mean, you can make any excuse you want for him. It just hasn't translated. He does, like I said, his highest finish has been 36. So you're putting a lot of faith, I think, in an aging Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury to be super high and super excited about Drake London. But like I said, the talent is there. Will it come to fruition? We'll see. But you might not even get to that point, right? So like I said, if you tag Chase, then Drake isn't even in the conversation. The other wide receiver that you have that's interesting, who I love, and I know many others in this league love, is Mike Evans. Evans goes back to Tampa Bay, back with Baker. And all he does is have 1,000-yard seasons. He's set the record. He has 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start a career, which is unbelievable. Speaking of alpha wide receiver build, Evans is 6'5", 231. So he's always a threat around the goal line to, the fades or just kind of like lob it up and let him go get it. He's very good at that. He's actually finished as a wide receiver 1 7 out of 10 seasons. So 70% of the time, Evans has finished as a wide receiver 1, which is pretty impressive. And he scored double-digit tutties in half of his seasons. He had 13 last year. The cons for Evans, the only hole I could really poke in Evans and being a little bit concerned would be his age. Again, he's 30 years old. And Father Time is undefeated. I don't know if you remember Julio Jones's the season he played at 30 years old, but it wasn't pretty. He had come, I think it was in 2020. So 2019, he was like unstoppable. He had like his best season ever. I know because I had him on a team, won a championship with him. But that next year, he fell off a cliff hard, and it happens. It happens to wide receivers around this time. You're getting to like 30, 31-ish. Is Evans, an outlier? Maybe, but it could happen halfway through the season or whatever. But the age is a concern. That would be my only concern. If Evans stays healthy, like I said, you could book him for probably another 1,000 yards, and he's got a great chance of scoring double-digit touchdowns and finishing as a wide receiver 1. But so the age would be my only concern. I'm interested in seeing what you do. I'm excited that some of these players, again, are coming back to the draft. Good luck, Duva. You better hope that you score some more points, because I don't think you can repeat scoring the 9th most points and finishing second. But keep watching, keep winning. Good luck, nerds.